The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. Chapter 8, Part 3. With my glass, I could distinguish great crowds of people running hither and thither on shore, but they made no effort to send us succor or to encourage us to cling to the wreck until the storm should abate. What was to be done? With a fearful crash, our mast now went by the board. Our ship was showing signs of breaking up. Neither threat nor reward could move any one of my men to attempt to swim ashore with a line. The sun now burst forth in a blaze of golden light. I could feel the tears gather in my eyes as I looked about and saw the sad ravages of wind and wave. Although the storm had abated somewhat of its fury, there was no time to be lost. Dread creakings of the ship's timbers warned me to leave the wreck ere I should be crushed against the rocks. Only disorder and confusion seemed to characterize the movements of the crowds gathered on shore. While apparently aware of the terrible import of our signals of distress, they showed no inclination to risk their lives in trying to save ours. Turning to Bulger, I cried out, "Oh, dearest Bulger, thou tried and true friend, companion of my sorrows, and sharer of my every joy, thou alone canst save me. Thou alone canst rescue thy loving master and these poor wretched creatures from impending death. I know thy courage, I know thy affection. In thy radiant eyes I read thy willingness to do or die." From his earliest youth I had trained Bulger to be a bold and skillful swimmer. No eddy, current, undertow, or whirlpool was angry or wild enough to strike any fear in his stout heart. With ease at my commands, he would dive 2 fathoms deep and bring the smallest coin from the bottom. Our vessel might go to pieces at any moment, for she had wrenched herself loose from the rocky ledge and was pounding on the jagged, flinty edges of the reef with a wild and ungovernable fury. Every fleeting moment became more precious than its predecessor. Making a superhuman effort, I caught the end of a reel of twine, and having fastened it to Bulger's collar, bade him leap into the bubbling, boiling, seething, swirling, madly rolling waters, storm lashed, whipped into foam, till billow broke on billow, and all seemed but one mingled mass of fury, rage, and fright. With a rapid succession of anxious, whining cries, followed by a series of quick, loud, sharp barks, Bulger gave me one last look, and placing his paws on the taffrail, sprang lightly over and disappeared. My heart stood still for a moment. But look! He rises! He strikes out for the shore, now tossed like a bit of cork on the arched back of a storm-affrighted billow, now sunken out of sight into the foam-flecked trough of the sea. Look again! Hark! I can catch the faint sound of that sharp, joyous bark sent back to cheer his little master's heart. And now he is gone. I see him not, but as the twine runs through my hands, I can almost feel every throb of that dear, stout heart. Steadily he keeps at his work, for steadily and rapidly the reel spins round. Crack! There goes our keel in twain. Quick, good Bulger, the end is near. But look, what means that commotion on shore? See the crowd, how it presses down to the very breaker's edge. Now they fall back. Hark! Do you hear that shout? Saved! Saved! Bulger has landed! The men on shore have hold of the twine. The reel whirls softly around. My men, ashamed of their cowardice, crawl from their hiding places and set to work with a will. Already they have fastened a line to the end of the twine, and it is moving briskly over the rail. There can be no doubt now. Bulger has saved us. Springing into the main shrouds and shielding my mouth from the gale with my hands, I called out to my men, "Stand by the hawser! Make fast the line! Now heave! Oh, let go all!" With an angry splash, the hawser fell into the sea and was soon on its way shorewards. and this was the way Bulger saved the life of his master, mate, and 12 seamen. I was the last man to leave the ship. As I did so, she shook herself loose, drew back, ran hard on the rocks with such a terrific blow that she broke into pieces as if struck by a lightning bolt or some gigantic hammer wielded by an unseen Thor. With a wild cry of joy, Bulger met me as I was drawn through the breakers. I threw myself on my knees and covered him with kisses, while tears rolled hot and fast down my cheeks. The people of the land gathered groupwise about us and watched our interchanging of caresses in deepest silence, agitating their thumbs and twitching the corners of their mouths. "What land is this? Where are we, good people?" I inquired after this first outpouring of love and gratitude had spent its fervor. "Bold barbarians," replied one of the nearest group, whose richer dress bespoke the man of rank and authority. "Thou standest on the shores of the mighty dominion of Kublai, child of the sun, lord of the imperial yellow garb, knight of all the buttons, man of the sacred countenance, successor to all the glories of his ancestors, now guests of heaven, source of all law and equity, and chevalier of all the orders, and we are his wretched, miserable, unworthy, good-for-nothing slaves." Whereupon the entire multitude performed the kowtow. "So then," I cried, "most prescient, noble, and altogether delightful sir," at the same time performing the kowtow with that grace which only the genuine citizen of the world can command, "I stand upon the sacred soil of the mighty Chinese Empire." "I, bold barbarian," answered the speaker, "in the province of Kwangtung, in the district of Yangqing, of which I, so too, mandarin of the white glass button, am imperial superintendent." Hearing this, I begged So too to give me leave to speak, which granted, in a brief but eloquent speech, well larded with all those savory epithets so sweet to the ears of an official in that land, I told him of my illustrious family, my strange desire to scour the remotest seas and least visited lands for marvelous things, how I had sailed in search of Neptune's cauldron, of the strange things seen there, of my setting out on my voyage homeward, my encounter with the storm fiend, and last of all, my shipwreck on the shores of the boundless dominions of the child of the sun. And now all that I craved from the servants of the man of the sacred countenance was such aid and assistance as would enable me and my men to reach the nearest seaport where foreign ships cast anchor, so that we might go down to the sea once more and reach our loved ones. To all this So too gave response with a most gracious smile, and then invited me to pass beneath his roof, lay off our wet clothes, drink some warm tea, and have his rubbers smooth the wrinkles out of my tired flesh. My seamen were not forgotten. His retainers were ordered to look well after their wants. Just as we were about to set out for So too's residence, several of his bodyguards struck their gongs in furious blows. The din was ear-splitting. With a loud bark, Bulger rushed towards me, and laying one ear against my leg, closed his other with his paw. So too and his retainers, at seeing this to me laughable sight, looked grave, agitated their thumbs, and twitched the corners of their mouths. Just as I was about crossing So too's threshold, to my inexpressible chagrin, I discovered that I had lost my purse containing a large sum of money. In a desperate hope that I might have dropped it on the seashore, I bounded away in that direction, but had not gone 100 paces ere I met Bulger carrying the purse in his mouth. I had in truth dropped it while kneeling on the beach and caressing my beloved rescuer. Noting that in my eagerness to follow my gracious host I had not missed the lost treasure, Bulger had driven away several of So too's retainers, who manifested a desire to appropriate the pouch of gold to their own use, and picking it up in his teeth, had raced after me as fast as this burden would permit. As we crossed So too's threshold, several small woolly dogs sprang out and gathered about Bulger. They were apparently delighted to meet with one of their race, so distinguished in appearance and dignified in carriage. Fain would they have exchanged the usual canine civilities with Bulger, but he absolutely declined to enter into any conversation with them, or to express any surprise at these extraordinary looking cousins of his, which seemed like so many animated bundles of freshly ginned cotton. Keeping close to my heels, he skillfully avoided their advances and gave a low growl of relief when the door of an antechamber was closed upon them. After a warm bath, my stiffened limbs were limbered up by the stroking, patting, and rubbing of Sotu's bath assistants. I was then invited to encase my body in a rich suit of embroidered silk, and this done, was conducted into the presence of the amiable Sotu, who received me with a smile that was as persistent as it was broad. Several hours were now consumed in drinking tea, eating dainty little sugar cakes, and telling each other the most extravagant and shameless lies in the shape of compliments. Compliments about everything: voice, eyes, ears, chin, mouth, hands, feet, etc. Although I only reached to Sotu's shoulders, he regretted, in a piteous tone, his lack of stature and praised my tall, stately, noble, commanding height. Overcome at last by sheer exhaustion, Sotu closed his eyes and appeared to have dropped off in a little nap. Seizing upon the opportunity, I raised my voice and began to urge upon him the necessity of immediate action with regard to me and my men. Whereupon he arose, and after a series of kowtows, the same broad smile playing around his wide mouth and small kindly black eyes, withdrew to consult with his assistant, sub-assistant, and first and second sub-assistants. It was quite dark when Sotu re-entered the room. Bulger and I, during his absence, had slept most soundly. No wonder, for we were both tired to the bones. And we'll pause here and we'll continue with this exciting story in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.